Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our webcast this morning, which we've entitled The Power of Power BI. If you were expecting to hear about something else apart from Power BI, you're probably in the wrong place, so you might want to go now. I'm David Hitwell. I'm a productivity specialist here at Visual. Prior to joining Visual, I was at Microsoft for 9 years, always working within the productivity space. I'm joined this morning by Matt Bradley, who's an enterprise architect at Visual, and Matt specialises in Power BI pretty much exclusively. So he's one of our resident experts here. We're lucky enough today to be joined by Lauren Jackson and Daniel Maddock, both from Staffs County Council, who work in the strategy, governance and change parts of the organisation, with their prime responsibilities understanding the best places for the organisation to deploy its resources, and where best to align, as we know, limited resources against the demands of providing frontline services. So in terms of an agenda, introductions, just done that. I'll give a very brief overview of Visual for those people who aren't familiar with Visual. I'll then hand over to Matt, who's going to give us a deeper look into Power BI, just really to make sure that we're all sort of starting from the same point. So Matt will go through what is Power BI, how do you get going with Power BI, what you need to buy to do what you need to do. So this webcast is really part of two webcasts. We have another one scheduled for the 20th of September. The one on the 20th of September is very much a demo. So Matt will be bringing together some open data sources as well as some internal data sources, bringing them together and showing you how simple it is to get going with this tool and how powerful it is. We're then going to hand over to Lauren and Daniel, who are going to take us through how Staffs County Council use Power BI, how it's affected how they do their jobs on a day-to-day basis, and what benefits they've seen from deploying that piece of technology. They're also going to touch on areas of consideration when deploying Power BI, and also future aspirations of where they're looking to go. So once we've finished their session, we'll open the floor up to questions and answers. Because I would imagine that the bulk of questions will be specific questions to them about how they've used it within their organisation. We'll then take a very quick look at the dark and dirty world of Microsoft licensing and how Power BI fits into it, and then we'll briefly touch on some next steps. In terms of housekeeping, if you've got some questions as we go along, you can either hold on to them till we open the mics up, or if you look down in the bottom leftish part of your screen, there's like a bubble. If you want to click on that, you can type your questions as you go, or if something occurs to you afterwards, or you don't want to ask it in the open forum, you can email inquiries@visual.com. All your phones should be muted, so we shouldn't get any background noise. And just to let you know, we are recording this session, so if you want to go back and review it at a later date, that's fine. Or if you want to pass it on to people who weren't able to make the session, then that's absolutely fine as well. So in terms of Visual, Visual are a Microsoft-only partner, which means that we only work with Microsoft, we only deploy Microsoft technology. But one of our key advantages in the marketplace is that we deploy across the whole of the Microsoft stack. So as we're looking at Office 365, which encompasses many different pieces of functionality in many different areas, we can deploy all of those, as well as things like Windows 10, Azure, System Center, etc., etc., etc. One of the key things that we do focus on is being able to leverage people's investment in Microsoft technology. We understand that people make big investments in enterprise agreements, and to be honest, if the tools aren't deployed and the users aren't adopting the tools, then that's wasted money. So we want to make sure that people make use of all the tools that they've bought so far. It's interesting that we use the words leverage here, because we're actually talking about leveraging data within an organization. So we all know that people are storing more and more data. There's more and more data applicable within an organization, outside an organization. So we need to start looking at how we can leverage that information, and that's really key to what we're discussing here today. Just in terms of where we sit, last year we were the UK Country Partner of the Year. As I said, we're only Microsoft partner. We have smart team agreements with MCS, etc. So we're a well-established partner within the Microsoft ecosystem. in terms of our business, we are divided into three broad areas: consulting, services, and solutions. Matt sits within the consulting part of the organisation. We have services part, which is reactive and proactive support. So normally we would support an implementation that we have done or a deployment we have done. But sometimes we do take on other people's deployments, and we would sort of check the deployment first of all, and then support it on an ongoing basis. So if you think that's something of interest, please come and talk to us. We've also developed a number of solutions. Many of these are based specifically on Office 365. Some of them are industry specific, so I'll call out the legal sector and the retail sector, where we're delving down into what is applicable to those sectors. How can we help that sector manage Microsoft technology in a better way, so it's more appropriate to the way that they go about doing their business. We also have a suite of products called Minerva 365, once again based on Office 365, but it's things like room-based room booking systems and case management systems, etc., etc. So much broader range of functionality across all verticals. So we're seeing a bit of a shift in the way that we go to market at the minute. For a long time, people would approach us and say, can you come and deploy SharePoint for us? Can you come and deploy Exchange for us, or Power BI in this case, or Skype for Business? And we would deploy them. We're seeing a much bigger shift now. We're still doing those smaller point deployments, but we're seeing much more transformational products coming on board, projects coming on board. And the three ones that we really talk about are connected business, end user computing, and optimized service vision. So connected business is about presenting the right information to the right people at the right time. So Power BI would fit very nicely into this. So it's making sure that the right people have that information at their fingertips when they need it. End user computing normally comes into play if people are introducing mobile flexible working, or introduce a new way of working, or just modernizing the desktop. So we kind of get involved in that as well. So, you know, things like Skype for Business, SharePoint, Exchange, Office 365 generally come into play in there. And the third piece we're getting involved in is optimized service vision, which is looking at how we deliver the services. So are we talking about a complete cloud-based solution? Are we talking on-premise, or are we talking a hybrid between the two? So we're seeing that shift to major transformational projects. So we're bringing in different people within the organisation to make sure that happens. So that was really what I just wanted to cover. I just wanted to give people a sense of who we are in case you weren't aware. So at this point, Matt, could I hand over to you, and you'd like to go into Power BI in a bit more detail?
Thanks, David. Hi, everybody. So I'm Matt Bradley. As David said, I'm an architect at Visual. I'm just going to talk to you and give you a brief overview of Power BI today. So what's Power BI? Well, it's a software as a service-based BI solution. So that means it lives in the cloud. It's based on Azure. It allows you to bring in data sources from the cloud, from your on-premises systems, from on-premises data warehouses, transform that through a tool called the Power BI desktop, and then build dashboards and reports and publish those to share with your colleagues through an online service. It also supports real-time dashboard updates. So if you've got real-time streaming of data, you can bring that into Power BI. There's a natural language querying, which is really useful for end users that want to be able to just ask questions of the data. How many service requests have we had today? Show me my service requests over the past month. And it will attempt to provide you with an answer based on the data that's available in your data set in Power BI. So it provides secure live connections to your data sources. So it'll connect out to cloud-based data sources. There's a data gateway that enables you to bridge that gap between your cloud-based Power BI and your online sources. So in case anybody's thinking, well, this lives in the cloud, all of my data's stored on premises, there's a service that you can install to be able to connect Power BI and refresh your data that's in the cloud from your on-premises data sources. So there's also mobile BI. So there's apps for Android, so iPhone, iOS, iPads, obviously Windows Phone, Surface or Windows devices are supported. So really great for being able to look at your mobile device, get an at-a-glance view of how things are going in a dashboard. You can, of course, then drill down, and all that capability is available through your mobile or your mobile device, or you can then connect through a browser to the online service and look at your data in more detail. There's a rapid pace of innovation in Power BI. Every month there's a new release. The visualizations are being enhanced. More data sources and connectivity is being added. So there's a blog page that comes out and explains all this to you, and updates appear in the Power BI desktop tool as well as the online tool. So a really rapid pace of innovation. There's ideas.powerbi.com site where the community can submit enhancement suggestions to Microsoft for Power BI. And Microsoft are very responsive to the requests of users. Quite a lot of those that have been suggested and have now been implemented. One of those I've certainly voted on which was for external sharing of dashboards and reports, and that's now made it into the product. So if there's anything there that's missing, I'd encourage everybody to go to ideas.powerbi.com and have a look at that and start submitting their ideas. Developer tools allow Power BI to integrate with applications, and perhaps one of the questions that gets raised quite frequently is, do I need Office 365 to use Power BI? The answer is no. You can get Power BI today as a standalone, but it integrates very nicely with Power BI. When you go to with Office 365, when you go to the Office 365 portal, you see Power BI in there as an option, and it makes it very easy to get through to all your dashboards and reports. So hopefully that's a brief overview of what Power BI is. We'll be, as David said, on the 20th, providing some demos and a walkthrough end-to-end of creating a data source, pulling that into Power BI, creating some dashboards and reports, publishing that to the online service, sharing it with colleagues, and being able to explore the data in the online service. So do join us again on the 20th if you're able to make that. So how much does Power BI cost? Well, the amazing thing is you can use a lot of Power BI for free. So I'd encourage everybody, if you don't know what Power BI is and you want to know more, to go to powerbi.com. There you can download the Power BI desktop, install that on your machine, and get going, pull some data sources in. If you, for example, if you use social media such as Facebook, it's very interesting to start connecting to your own Facebook profile, pulling in data, seeing how many likes and shares that you've had. So there are ways that you can really start getting to grips with Power BI today. There's some nice videos and YouTube videos available to walk you through that process. The Pro version retails at £6.20 per user per month. David will be very interested if you're wanting to go with Office 365 Enterprise E5. That comes with Power BI Pro folded in there. But if you're interested more in Power BI, I see my URL's got a slash where it should have a full stop there in the URL. So it's www.powerbi.com/pricing if you want to know more details. I'm going to talk though now about signing up for Power BI. As I said, go to powerbi.com. If you already have Office 365, your Office 365 administrator can give you the free version directly through the Office 365 admin portal. If you attempt to sign up and a message comes back saying you need to contact your organization's admin, then the only way you can sign up is through it's by asking your Office 365 administrator, and that's to do with the way that integration between the Azure Active Directory service has been set up on your on-premises Active Directory domain services. So that's all about the being able to extend your on-premises identities to the cloud, so you can use those for Power BI. So you don't have to use separate credentials to log into Power BI. So what can I do for free? Well, you can certainly go and create your own dashboards, share those with other users, author content, try out the natural language, try out the mobile apps, get your dashboards and reports on those. There are content packs out there. One of the things that quite a lot of customers are surprised to know about is that you can actually go into Power BI for free, connect to Google Analytics, which I know a lot of people use to track visits to their websites, and start creating some really nice visualizations based on clicks on your website directly from Google Analytics. That's a really nice thing to try out. You can import data from Excel, CSV, business objects, universes, social media that I already mentioned. There's a wide and growing variety of data sources that are supported by Power BI. You can then publish your reports and dashboards out to the web and share those externally. So some of the conversations we have with customers, and particularly public sector customers, they get a lot of freedom of information requests. And one of the ways in which they can help share this data externally is to use this publish to web feature within Power BI to share their data out and just point people at their website or wherever they've published the data so they can self-serve. You can refresh your data daily. You can consume streaming data at the 10K rows an hour that I've got there, and there's a gig's worth of data limit for free. So really, in my humble opinion, a lot. And actually, the lion's share of the product you can get there for free. But in the Pro, you get better refreshing, better streaming. What you're really getting here is the ability to publish content packs. So package up your reports and dashboards and share those throughout the organization. So with Power BI, there's really two ways you can look at it. You can create standard organizational content packs, publish those within the organization, so standard reports and dashboards. People can then consume and look at those. There will be other people within the organization that will want to generate their reports and dashboards to pull in data and share that with their colleagues in a very much a self-service BI scenario. And Power BI also supports that. So it supports that very much controlled distribution of reports and dashboards, and also that self-service BI. So yeah, that's what you get extra for your £6.20 per user per month. Now, what's really great, in my humble opinion, about Power BI is where it sits in Gartner's Magic Quadrant. And hopefully you can see it over there in the leaders quadrant on the right-hand side. So on the horizontal axis, which is the completeness of vision axis, Microsoft wins and even beats its main competitors by some margin, which are Tableau and Click. Now, we're almost there on the ability to execute, almost equal to Click, but not quite equal with Tableau. But I would certainly guess that since the time that this was done, with the monthly releases, and when I think where the product was 6 months ago and where it is now, it's been enhanced beyond kind of recognition, really. There's some amazing new features in there. So it'll be interesting to see where Gartner places Microsoft in the next release of the Magic Quadrant. I've got a short link if you want to have a look at the report and more details, which is rasu.al / that's MQBI. So it's Magic Quadrant BI if you want to have a look at that report from Gartner there. So how secure is Power BI? I know we're very much focused on public sector here. Power BI is available in Microsoft's Trust Center. I've got the link down there if you want to see more details, but there's some of the certifications that are available here. The ISO 27001 UKG Cloud, so it's certified to, there are the 3 levels. One's secret. I'd have to remember what the levels are, but it's the first level. There's the 3 levels of security in the UKG Cloud, and it's the first level that Microsoft Power BI is certified to. But it's all available in that Power BI link if you want to have another look there around security. Integration with Azure Active Directory. So I touched on that a few moments ago. So that's being able to use your on-premises identity. So the username password that you use to log into your PC in the morning, you can always also use that same username password to log in to Power BI. So you're not managing different identities for Power BI there. So where Power BI sits in the bigger picture from Microsoft, it's over there under dashboards and visualizations on the right-hand side, but there are a whole host of additional services available in Azure around analytics and business intelligence that are worth looking into. For example, we've got the SQL Data Warehouse, which is a service that enables you to host huge data warehouses in the cloud. That enables you to do some very intensive and complex querying on your data in your data warehouse. And it's kind of, if you need to dial up compute for that particular service, you can just add and pay for more compute if you have some intensive querying to do, and then dial that back down. So you can even turn it off and not pay for compute. So it's a really flexible data warehouse service. Data catalog, in my humble opinion, a very much unsung service that allows you to create metadata about your data sources in your organization, to create data dictionaries, share those, make them searchable. Really great service, free for up to 50 people, well worth investigating and looking at. Data Factory, being able to move data around the cloud. The Data Lake Store, so your solutions for big data and being able to analyze unstructured and semi-structured data in the data lake that complements your data warehouse there as well. So some great and growing services within Cortana Intelligence from Microsoft. So that's it from me. As I say, please join us on the 20th for some live demos where we show you what Power BI can do in more detail. But I'm now going to hand over to Lauren and Dan, that are going to take you through how they implemented Power BI in Staffordshire County Council.
Thank you very much, Matt. Hi there, everybody. My name is Daniel Maddock, and I'm here with my colleague Lauren Jackson. And today, as Matt says, we're going to give you a quick overview of how we've embedded Power BI in Staffordshire County Council and giving you a bit of that learning along the way. I'm going to talk to you about our function, our vision, and what we practically do, and then what Power BI means to us and how we use it on a day-to-day basis. Lauren's going to go through an example of how we've implemented it end-to-end, and talk to you about some of the impacts it's had to date and some of the future aspirations we have for the technology. Then I'm going to go back and talk about some of the learning points and what we've learned along the way. So we are the Insight Planning and Performance team. There's about 30 or so of us in the team, and our team vision is really to be making a difference, and that's by providing high quality, timely, evidence-based insight to support Staffordshire County Council in delivering its vision. There's been much talk of vision. We have three primary functions. First of all, data management. So that involves the provision of timely, accurate, and relevant data sets to the organisation. We have performance, which is the performance management framework, and that drives delivery of outcomes and effective commissioning of services. And then we have research. Within research, we have three strands. First of all, analytical, and that supports commissioning to measure the impact on outcomes. We have investigative research, which serves to identify long-term strategic priorities through in-depth research. And we also have primary research to ensure that the voices of residents are robustly represented in all our decision-making. These are the people we serve ultimately. In terms of this journey, it's really important to understand where we've come from. The Insight team previously spent around about half of their time collecting, cleaning and organising data. And those of you listening from a public sector background, I'm sure will be familiar with that. And really for us, 2014 was a big year of transition and transformation. This is when we started to review our functions to try and enable efficient data management and analysis, which was aligned to our organisational needs. and everything had to be aligned to our delivery plan. And that is when we came up with our vision for the data solution. And that was to successfully implement and embed new technologies to enable the insight planning performance team to develop, produce, and share advanced insight. And this is where Power BI came to the fore as a leading technological candidate. So our vision for Power BI is to embed it within the team, both as an analytical tool, as a tool for providing appropriate research and performance outputs, and to enable the team to produce appropriate interactive outputs that allow customers to explore and interrogate data for themselves. And that's a critical point, really, that self-service aspect of it, and allowing our customers to go in and find out what they need to know on their own. This will ultimately lead to greater efficiency and reduced cost of production. So less resource involved in producing insights and more time spent analysing than preparing data. It leads to improved quality in terms of data and outputs, complex analysis, new insights, accurate, clean, and managed data. Greater support to the business, allowing more agile and proactive support. Improved management of the work programme and of team resources. Improved information with governance and clear standards of compliance, and very importantly, one version of the truth. Additionally, we're also ready for greater income generation, which supports our sustainability for the future. Okay, so how we use Power BI. So really, it's important to point out here what sort of Power BI means to us. From our perspective, Power BI is a range of Microsoft products that allow large amounts of data, which would often be too large for conventional spreadsheets to handle, to be managed, transformed, analysed, joined, visualised, presented using relatively basic Excel skills. So a bit more on this later. It is a fantastic enabler, which when used correctly has great potential. We use it for data management, so for structuring data and cleaning it. We use it for creating data models, creating and sharing data models across the team. We use it for data discovery and viewing data in different and more engaging ways. We use it to visualize, creating and sharing interactive outputs, and also great efficiency, the ability to automate data updates and to refresh outputs automatically. We, for the data management and the creation of data models, we primarily use the data plugins for Excel, namely Power Query and Power Pivot. But Power BI Desktop has very similar functionality with the add-ins, and we use it primarily for the visualization of data that's already been modeled in Excel. We then have powerbi.com, which is where we have our workspace. This is where we share our reports and dashboard and push them out to our customers. Now, I'm just going to hand over to Lauren, and she'll talk through our example of end-to-end implementation.
Thanks, Dan. So I'm just going to talk through an example of where we've used Power BI in performance management. So in Staffordshire, this is known as Total Performance Management, or TPM. And although Power BI has been used in most of our projects and work streams now across the team, this is an example where it's been used in an end-to-end process, like Dan's just explained, right from structuring the data in Excel, right the way through to presenting the visualizations in Power BI Desktop. So before we started using Power BI, we used to produce a static performance report every quarter, and this was produced manually every time. It was about 90 pages long and printed as a paper version. So the whole process was very resource intensive for the performance team, and it was extremely time consuming. So the new methods of working that Dan has talked about have made this process much more streamlined and efficient. So as a result, more resource has been dedicated to this in the first instance, with the data, research and performance functions of the team all being involved, rather than just performance, which is how we worked previously. However, the intention is that ultimately it'll be much less resource intensive in the future. So the strategic performance report is made up of multiple performance indicators in relation to the economy, health, communities and how well the council is run. So these are drawn from a vast number of data sets that have different sources, geographies, publishing schedules and time periods. So some are based on nationally available data that we can access ourselves, and some are local indicators that we get from service areas within the council or from partners. But regardless of the source, the data team now collect, structure and manage all of the relevant data sets so that they're available to the researchers as soon as that data is available, and then the researchers can then refresh their data models. So at that point, the latest data is then available to me as a performance officer to refresh the reports that contain the visualizations. So the performance reports for each measure are created in Power BI Desktop, as I've explained. Lots of time and resources have been dedicated to getting the dashboards set up, but once they are set up, it's literally a case of refreshing them to bring in the latest data. So obviously this is a significant improvement compared with how we worked before we used the Power BI tools. And once those desktop files have been updated, these are then published online into a group workspace. So this enables colleagues who also have access to that same workspace to also publish and share the reports. So that then adds that resilience to the team, because if someone's away from the office, a colleague can pick this up. In terms of sharing the dashboards, we used to use the content packs, but as pro licenses are required to access these, we've changed this so we just share the dashboards directly instead. The audience for our performance includes our senior leadership team, which includes the chief exec and cabinet members as well. So they all have Power BI licenses and can access the updated dashboards as soon as they've been published. Occasionally this does potentially have issues, as sometimes the formatting can change when the reports are published online, but these can be edited if there are any problems, and so that can be mitigated straight away. So basically now we're at the stage where we've moved completely away from having that static report, and the key customers can access those reports online, so we no longer produce the paper copy. Just moving on to the impacts. So the main positive impact of producing the performance report in this way is the increased efficiency that we've talked about, both in terms of the time that will be saved in the long run, but also in terms of the increased confidence that people now have in the data. This has been reflected in the way that cabinet members and senior managers have been exploring the data more, and there have been far fewer questions about the validity of the actual data. So there's been a much greater focus on data discovery and the insights that can be drawn. And of course, as Matt explained before, there's the mobile BI element as well. So like cabinet members, for instance, if they're in the meetings, can access the performance information on their tablets. And an example of the efficiency of it when we've been demoing to the cabinet members is that they've been immediately been able to drill down into the areas that they're particularly interested in. Whereas before, when we had the static Staffordshire level report, this would have been a separate piece of work that we would have had to go away and produce manually. So with regard to future aspirations, let's say people are becoming more engaged with the interactive dashboards, and as they evolve and stakeholders gain more confidence in them, the intention is that the dashboards and reports will become crucial for assisting in those key commissioning decisions across the business. As this has been a massive shift for us, to a certain extent, the TPM Power BI reports were initially set up with that static pack in mind, just to help with the transition between the two ways of working. However, now that people are more familiar with those interactive reports, with developing these more, being a bit more creative and making them even more engaging, so including things like hierarchies and interactive maps. So the team's also in the process of implementing a data solution as well, which will further improve the whole process and will ultimately allow the data sets to be refreshed automatically. So then the data will be real time in as much as it will be showing the latest available data at any given point. And so to prepare for this, we're developing an automated summary page that contains all the performance measures and then any statistical change. The data solution will also allow us to overlay multiple data sets to support our data discovery and insight. Another thing that we're looking to set up is the data alerts for when there is a performance change of note. So, for example, we could set up an alert for the head of economy, for instance, to have an alert if the rate of job seekers allowance payments exceeds the national rate. Obviously, this functionality is already available, but it's just not something that we've used as yet. And obviously, there's still some way to go to get the dashboards to where we want them to be, but there has been a considerable improvement in our ways of working as a team, and the progress that's been made over the last couple of years really has been quite significant. It certainly improved my role as a performance officer, and as more dashboards are set up, this then frees up more time to further investigate the exceptions and manage performance more effectively. So Dan is now just going to talk through some of the key learning points, not just from the performance reporting, but also from other work that's taken place across the team.
Thank you very much, Lauren. As Lauren mentioned, considering where we used to be just a couple of years ago, it's fantastic to see how far we've come. So we're just going to quickly go through try and summarise where we are now and then what we've learned along the way. A little position statement is now that our interactive dashboards are now updated in line with data releases quickly and easily. This new way of working and the outputs are key components of our delivery and our core products. It's core to what we do. So, for example, more concise, focused reports with key messages and up-to-date data intelligence. We have increased accessibility to key customers and groups of customers. For example, the website access for wider organizational reach and impact, and access across many different devices. It's enabling further interrogation of a wider range of data sources, including finance and HR. And it's also shifted the conversation with the business, which enables us to talk about the messages rather than focus on the numbers, and that enables us to get better impacts. And once again, this is so important, it provides that single version of the truth. So in terms of the learning, we've also met a few challenges along the way, and we would encourage any organisation looking to start this journey to carefully consider your requirements. First of all, costs, which is a key concern for the public sector, in particularly in these fiscally constrained times. We have the licensing requirements, but also things like other software. We had to upgrade our version of Office to Office 2013 as a minimum, which, believe it or not, was quite radical for the public sector. We also had to upgrade our version of Windows to 64-bit. We also had to upgrade our computers. Our desktops needed to be quite good in order to run the technology successfully. So we're currently running desktops with Core i5 processors and 12 gigabytes of RAM. The minimum specs are a minimum, and we discovered that those upgrades were necessary if we're going to be running things efficiently. Also, resources and staff, and potentially buying in knowledge and skills. We've got issues around scalability and performance as well, structuring data for efficiency and holding it in the warehouse, and the knowledge to do that as well. After all, storage space is expensive. You need to consider very carefully your information governance, particularly when it comes to storing data in the cloud. And this is most relevant when it comes to sensitive internal data that you might want to use, and that's a hurdle you're going to have to jump over. And one thing which is critical is the time and the resource involved, particularly in training. For example, learning the new language of DAX, which you use in Power Pivot. If you can use nested formulas in Excel, you can transfer those skills straight over to DAX fairly easily, but it does take time. It is a new language. Also, if you're going down the line of implementing a data solution, that will also take time, negotiating ICT time internally and their support, negotiating the support of information governance and time for software upgrades, etc., and giving your staff the freedom to learn as well at their own pace. We are 2 years or so into this adventure. We're still not there yet. And it's an ongoing development kind of journey. You'll also need a software update schedule. This is an ongoing Microsoft project, as Matt mentioned earlier. Exciting and snazzy upgrades coming all the time, but it can be difficult to keep up with upgrades in a corporate environment. Also consider your data complexities, large numbers of data sets from many different sources, and having data dictionaries and keeping track of everything. We have different reporting and update frequencies, monthly, annual, to keep on top of, for example. Also, the complexities of multiple geographies. We found that to be a particularly tricky thing to get our heads around. You have the census geographies, which are quite familiar, so wards and districts and unitary authorities that nest neatly together. But then you come across things like school catchments and CCGs, for example, and other peculiar local geographies that you need to build into your system so they all work well together. There is an awful lot to think about. But hopefully we've been able to provide you with an insight to how we're currently using the technology in Staffordshire. Do we have time for questions now, Matt?
I think so. Thanks, Dan. So if anybody, David, did you have anything to say before we go into questions, or?
No. First of all, thanks, Lauren, Daniel. It's very informative. I suppose I took away a couple of things from that. One, which was a phrase that was used early on in the discussion, which was about embedding Power BI in the way that you do business. And then you kind of expanded on that as though that has become part of your ongoing process, your decision-making process. And that all came about because you then had access to accurate data that could be shared within the organization. People weren't necessarily questioning that was the right data because it had come from the correct sources. You were able to bring in multiple data sources at any one time, so you were getting much more of a complete picture of where things were going. And I suppose the key phrase was there was a single version of the truth. Everybody was believing the data was happening. So actually, we can make decisions based upon it. We're not sort of saying, well, we need to make that decision, but actually, is that the right data to be using for that decision? So I suppose that's what I took away from that as much as anything else. Let me open the floor up to see if we have any questions on anything covered so far. I don't know how we work the mics at this stage, Molly, whether we just open them up or people just unblock themselves. Okay, Tom Wilkes has a question. So
for the people, I guess for the people that can't see the web chat, that's Tom Wilkes says, I'd be interested to know how many pro licenses Staffordshire required, bearing in mind reducing costs. Are most reports published to the web?
At the moment, I'm not entirely sure, if I'm honest, how many pro licenses we've got. I think we're looking at it at the moment, aren't we? I think certainly all of the people that use Power BI within our team have the pro license, and then it's at the moment it's like senior leadership team and cabinet members. So yeah, we are looking to roll it out across the organisation as well. But again, it's just keeping in mind those costs and just how best to do that. So I think work's going on at the moment, from sort of like our sort of management team to think how best to do that. Yeah. But in terms of like publishing to the web, it is mostly just, as I say, share. We do produce the reports in Power BI Desktop, publish them online, but it is just for those people that obviously have those licenses and shared with them.
Yeah. It's a good example also of opportunity cost as well. When we moved our TPM away from paper-based packs, all our cabinet members got iPads, and there's an iOS app so they can view Power BI on their iPad. And the cost of the iPad was recouped within a couple of months in terms of saving in printer and paper costs as well. So yes, there is that initial and ongoing cost involved, but it's really about how you approach it.
Okay, great. Any other questions? I've got a quick question, Daniel. Early on in your presentation, you mentioned about how you could use the data you were working with to make an impact upon income generation within the authority. How does that work? What are you talking about with that?
Well, it's largely at the moment we're thinking in terms of the people we work with across the public sector. We don't just serve the internal functions of Staffordshire County Council. We also support the wider strategic partnership as well. And of course, with all the work that we do, there is a cost, and so we're able to get a much better idea of how much a piece of work will cost, and to charge the people who commission the work accordingly. But also there's opportunities to open up the solution to our partners as well, and get them to buy into the solution as well, rather than commissioning their own independent solution. These are opportunities going forward, and it's stuff we're thinking about at the moment, but we're prepped and ready, shall we say.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you. Any other questions before we start to wrap up with the last section? If there's any more occurs, just type it into the window down the bottom there. So let me take over as presenter. So as was mentioned before, we won't go into a huge amount of detail, but Power BI Pro now forms part of the E5 license. A quick question for Mark there. Yep, we'll distribute these slides afterwards to everybody that attended, along with a link to the recording of this as well. So that's no problem at all. Yes, so Power BI, as you can see, sits in the central pillar there, which is Power BI Pro and Delve Analytics. Without going into too much detail, the green box refers to all the Skype components which have been beefed up for Office 365, probably with the most important one being Cloud PBX. So basically being able to replace your on-premise PBX and put it into Office 365. Porting your numbers across, etc., so you don't have to maintain an on-premise and potentially expensive solution. The other thing that's people are showing a lot of interest in is the PSTN conferencing, which is a replacement for something like WebEx or BT Meet Me. But the way that Microsoft have done it is it's an all-you-can-eat solution. So you have a single monthly subscription, and you can use that as much as you like for audio conferencing. The pieces in the blue column are around security. So if you're looking at Exchange Online in particular, the advanced security management, the advanced threat protection will give you an extra layer of protection that you don't currently have, but will also allow you to uncover anomalies, people logging in multiple times, people downloading large quantities of information out of your system, out of your tenant. So there's been a couple of examples recently within the public sector where if this was in place, then that would have prevented that that sort of leakage of information. So it kind of goes about prevention of data leakage and actually uncovering that data leakage and protection of the internal systems. So that's kind of Office 365. Oh, hang on, I think we had one more question. Yes, Paul Mills, you spoke about sensitive data in the cloud and getting over this hurdle. Can you expand on this? I suggest that's probably Lauren and Daniel.
Sort of only partially. The discussions which have been going on with information governance have been a tier which is above me and Lauren. But it is a major consideration when it comes to what type of information you can store in what type of environment and where that physical storage actually is. The cloud is actually a physical hard drive somewhere. And there are rules and regs about where stuff can be stored. So certain information can be stored, has to be stored within the European Union, and there are restrictions on how far on board you can go. There's much information available online, but if you had a more specific question, please feel free to use our contact details, which are in the slides, and we'll try and find out more for you.
Thank you. Okay, so next steps. Obviously, as Matt and I have mentioned, we have the follow-up webcast on the 20th of September, which is more of a demo, an interactive kind of session to show you this in action if you haven't seen it so far. I'll quickly touch on the first point of Matt. You can pick up the second one. We do something original called a one-day architectural design session, which is basically you get a consultant on site for a single day, and you can fire questions at them. They will explain how it would sit within your organization, and you're basically whiteboarding a high-level solution. And at the end of that day, we've normally got to the position where people have answered all the questions they need to answer, and then they can make a decision: is this right for me, or is that consideration necessary? Or so it goes back to what Lauren and Paul and Daniel were saying earlier on, was about making sure when you go into this in the first instance you have considered it carefully. So the one-day architectural design session is designed to help you do that. Matt, do you want to touch on the other sort of bits and pieces that we normally sort of engage in the first steps?
Sure. So, and just to add on the architectural design session engagement, so this can cover the breadth and depth of BI. So if there's a particular aspect that you're interested in that falls outside Power BI, so maybe you're particularly interested in data lakes, it's something that we can cover during that day. So what we'll do in advance is talk to you and say which areas are of interest to you, which should we focus on, and maybe even talk about some of the services that you may not be aware of, so in case any of those pique your interest, and we can cover those as well. So as part of the data platform consultancy, and Power BI falls within that, we have obviously Power BI, where we can provide proof of concepts, consulting around the Power BI technology. We provide data warehousing consultancy alongside that, dealing with big data analytics and machine learning. And those are associated with some of those services that we saw back on the Cortana intelligence slides. As well as that, we deploy the SQL Server platform. We have a platform modernization engagement where we can help customers move from older versions of SQL Server. They may be running, say, 2005 and want to modernize the platform. And that may be also moving some of those workloads to the cloud-based database offerings, or a hybrid of on-premises and cloud, and also platform optimization. So if people are experiencing issues optimizing their SQL Server infrastructure, then we can come and help with that as well. So last but not least, we have a data platform and business intelligence strategy. Certainly before we undertake any major business intelligence project, we would recommend putting a strategy in place. So talking to executives within an organization, departmental leads, understanding what their analytical requirements are, the data that's available internally within the organization, cloud data sources that are going to help the organization to define a business intelligence architectural blueprint and a roadmap for delivery. And we'll also prioritize the reporting requirements of the organization as well, based on the workshops that we run throughout the organization, and present that back in a strategy to you. So that's what that's all about. Data platform strategy, much more focused around the SQL Server product. As I mentioned, that whole platform modernization, potentially moving to the cloud if that's right for an organization, remaining on premises, using some of the latest and greatest features of products such as SQL Server 2016, and making sure people get the most out of their enterprise agreements and licensing. So some of our standard engagements there. More than happy to talk to anybody in more detail around what we do in the areas of business intelligence and data platform, if need be. Just one quick thought on the question we had from Paul a few moments ago. I remembered the certification, the Power BI certification around the government security classification scheme. So there's 3 levels. It's official, secret, and top secret. And Power BI is certified to official as part of that. But that's all. If you search for Power BI in the Trust Center, and that's Center is in ER for Microsoft, and you'll hopefully find some more information there about security compliance.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Matt. Last call for any more questions. If not, we will wrap up. You can always get in touch with us afterwards. But any burning questions at the moment? No. Oh, yeah. Okay. We have, so I'll read this one out. Would you be able to help sync this is you, Matt. Would you be able to help sync on-premise data warehouse to Cloud Azure SQL for partition data, for non-personal confidential data?
So we can certainly have a conversation about that. So I encourage you to reach out, or in fact, we can get somebody to contact you after the call to discuss in more detail. So there are a couple of options there. There's within the SQL Server 2016 product, there's something called stretch database. So if you have partition data, so I assume that the data is partitioned by date, it's possible to move cold data to the cloud within your data warehouse to reduce the impact on your on-premises storage. So that may be one way of having a hybrid data warehouse in the cloud, or otherwise you could move wholesale from your on-premises data warehouse to the Azure SQL Data Warehouse service. Now, there's some considerations that go with cloud-based data warehousing, particularly around ETL. So if you have a very data intensive ETL and you're moving a lot of data from your on-premises systems to your data warehouse every night, then we need to look carefully at whether cloud's going to work or whether that's going to create any issues. Ideally, what we want in terms of our ETL, our extract transform load, is an incremental load to the cloud, so that we are able to be as efficient as we possibly can in that transfer of data. What's nice about the SQL Data Warehouse service, again, it's a platform as a service database. So Microsoft take care of all the backups. It's highly available. So there's no need to select high availability. It comes as standard with the product. So some great DBA features that you get out of the box with that particular service. But thanks for the question, Rizwan. We'll be in touch to discuss in more detail if that makes sense.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you, Matt. Any more? No. Okay. All right. Well, that just leaves me to say thank you very much for everybody who attended the call today. Hope you found it useful. Hope you got a good overview of Power BI from a technology standpoint as well as an end user perspective. Thank you to Matt. Thank you very much indeed to Daniel and Lauren for taking the time to take us through their journey and their ongoing journey with Power BI. It's been really useful. So thank you very, very much indeed. And if that's it, we shall close off, but we will be in touch very soon. With the deck, with the link, with the registration link for the next webcast we have on the 20th, and Rizwan will be in touch around your specific question as well. But thank you very much indeed, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.